We're going to talk to you today about how you can counter internet complexity with AI-powered internet performance monitoring. So the internet is only getting more complicated, and it is also your new network. You go back 20, 30 years, maybe you had your own data center or you're actually buying software and installing it on servers. That's long, long, long in the past. Whatever you need, you've offloaded to a cloud service or some other third party, which is fine as long as the internet is working properly. And the problem with the internet, as I mentioned, is it is not only complex, it is constantly changing and it is very, very fragile. So maybe it's not going to happen to you. Wrong. Outages happen all the time, and they happen to the biggest companies. I mean, if you're looking at Fastly and Google and Akamai here on the right, in fact, a bit more recent, Salesforce has been in the news for multiple outages. It's really not a question of if you're going to suffer an outage, it's a question of when. And not just when, but for how long, how often, how bad is that outage, how much is it going to cost you, and most importantly, who's going to get fired for it. So here is an overly complicated graph that really sums up to the title here. The faster you can identify a problem, the faster you can resolve it, ideally before it impacts your users and your business. If we're looking at a timeline along the bottom and a number of errors on the vertical axis, you can see that a typical application performance monitoring solution is in gray there. It's going to take a lot of errors before it hits the APM error threshold and sends a notice that there's been a problem detected, and that takes time to fix, and that takes time to resolve. If you're using something like Catchpoint, for example, though, you are going to be able to detect a change a lot earlier. You're going to be able to respond to it, fix it, and resolve it much, much, much more quickly, usually before around the same time that an APM solution would have detected it. And what that means is all that gray area becomes time and money savings. So why is Catchpoint so different? What we do is something called internet performance monitoring, and this is very different from typical application performance monitoring or network performance monitoring. What we're doing is we're monitoring the entire internet stack. That's that thing over there on the right. Everything from your applications at the top all the way through the various different levels of the internet, be they marketing servers, be they core data transfer, right down to the last mile at the bottom. And what we are able to do is give you full visibility into the experiences of your users, whether that's customers, your workers, the actual applications or the network or the website. And you want to be able to see these before they impact your business. And we do that from the outside in. That means from the bottom up. So I've been talking for a minute or two now, and I haven't even mentioned AI, which is the point of this. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek at something else we do here at Catchpoint. Annually, we run a big survey that we call the SRE report, where we poll a whole lot of reliability engineers and ask them a variety of questions. This is still in progress, so I'm giving you a sneak peek at some of the early data that we haven't actually crunched or put into a formal output yet. So I stole this from my coworker who's putting this together. But one of the questions we asked, obviously, was about AI, and we asked them how useful do they think AI will be towards these following activities. And this was really interesting. Incident management, which is what I was just discussing a second ago, the vast majority, 65% of the SREs surveyed, think it is going to be moderately, very, or extremely useful when it comes to incident management. And in fact, the only two things here in this question that score higher are capacity management and expected writing code. So what that means is the industry expects that AI is really going to help with outages, and they are correct, because we're going to describe a couple of them while we go through here today. And I'm going to start with something called Internet Sonar, which is a new tool Catchpoint has developed as part of our Catchpoint platform. It is basically global at-a-glance visibility into outages all over the internet. So let's step back a minute, because I just talked about IPM and the internet stack. What's the difference between that and Internet Sonar, and why is it new? Well, Internet Stack is monitored by Catchpoint using Internet Synthetics, and that's your Internet Stack. So it's the applications, it's the connections, it's the third parties that you care about. If you're monitoring CDNs, it's your CDN, all right? And Catchpoint's going to monitor them all using synthetics and let you know if there's going to be an issue that's impacting your services or your business. It's your stuff. Internet Sonar, on the other hand, monitors everything else. So remember I said if Internet Synthetics monitor your CDN, Internet Sonar monitors all CDNs. And what it's doing is looking for third parties that you may not necessarily be monitoring, and it's determining whether they're out, and it's giving you that information. It can do this because we have the world's largest global observability network, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But that's our kind of secret sauce here. The advantage of this is it answers one question that every single IT team needs to answer a second there's an outage. Is this me? Or is this someone else that's causing the problem? All right. And to do that, we leverage not only that global observability network that I talked about, but also AI. And now I'm going to hand it over to Bob, who's going to walk you through a demonstration of exactly how we do that. Ray, Bob?
Thanks, Mark. I want to start off the demo by building upon one of the things that you mentioned during your presentation. And it's the importance of being able to answer that question, is it me or is it something else? I often hear from many organizations that they only want to monitor what they can control. They don't care if third parties are acting up or having problem because it's something that they just can't fix directly. And while I sort of understand the basis of that reasoning, the fact is that's an antiquated mindset. There's just too much risk, whether it be from competition, impact to brand, loss of revenue, things like that, to not have a strategy that provides complete visibility across all the services that you rely on. And that's what I really love about our new solution, Internet Sonar. Without any configuration, we can proactively detect outages and performance degradation across different cloud providers and platforms, DNS providers, CDNs, and other marketing technologies. By knowing immediately after a problem is detected, you'll be able to take corrective action or institute contingency plans to minimize the impact of third party outages before they impact your business and customers. So, for example, right now we're looking at a live view of different outages that are happening around the globe as we speak. Issues with AWS, TikTok, Azure. There's always something that is going on that could be impacting your users and your customers. And very often, what we see is that when vendors have problems or outages, it's not a wholesale or wide scale thing where it's down in all regions. They might be, micro outages that are impacting specific geographies and areas. And that's what Catchpoint is going to help provide visibility into. If I click into this filters tab, we can get a list or a look at all of the services that we're capturing and monitoring out of the box. So you can see services across different category types like marketing, CDN, IaaS, and PaaS, unified communications. And when we talk about some of the cloud providers like AWS and Azure, what we're doing is getting pretty granular in terms of what we can actually look at within those services. So we're monitoring across different regions, and then within those regions, right, we can look at the specific services that are being hosted and provided in that area. So very, very powerful, deep insights into really all of those third-party services that your applications and your business relies on. I'll walk through a few workflows and examples in a little bit of how we can action this type of data, but I'll hand it back to you now, Mark, so you can explain a bit more of how we collect this information and our approach and our strategy to making sense of it all.
Thanks, Bob. That was a great demo. Let's take a look at another example. I did mention I was going to talk a bit more about our global observability network. This number's out of date, by the way. I'll tell you that right now. We're constantly adding new vantage points, and every time we make a slide, it's almost immediately out of date. I would be very surprised if this number isn't over 2,800 before the end of the year. But regardless, this is our global observability network. It covers a wide variety of different nodes and BGP peers in the web, in the cloud, wireless and last mile nodes, endpoint devices, etc. A lot of our competitors are very proud of the fact that they have 1,000 vantage points. We have well over twice that. And not only is this something that our customers use constantly, we're also testing it continually. And that's the key to how we use our AI-enabled analytics tool to provide actionable information and control that tsunami of data. If we're looking at literally running millions of tests on these nodes every day, we're talking billions of discrete data points that comes out of that. And that's nothing any human's going to be able to understand. However, part of the Catchpoint platform is a series of AI-powered smartboards that turn all of that data into actual actionable information. So it's at the very basic level doing pattern matching, but also a lot more. And the result is taking a lot of discrete data points and displaying them as useful information that you can understand. And a perfect example, and you're going to see it in a minute when Bob shows it, is the customer experience score. This is a gauge. It looks like a speedometer, and it gives you a number out of 100 to tell you how your customers are experiencing the web. That could be hundreds or possibly thousands of discrete data points adding up to that. You don't care. You need to know, are they happy? Are they sad? What's the level? What's the difference? That data is still there. If you want to drill down, you can definitely see all of it because the devil really is in the details. But the AI analytics engine is going to be identifying false positives. It's going to be tracking things that are duplicates, and it's going to be giving you something that is far more accurate and a lot less noisy than what you're going to see with a lot of other solutions. The big result is you've got one actionable big picture, but you've got underlying detailed granular data if you need it and if you want to go into it. And Bob's going to walk us through a demo of this one as well. Go ahead, Bob.
Thanks again, Mark. Good stuff. So what I want to do is walk through a couple examples now of how we've incorporated machine learning, AI into our various troubleshooting dashboards and workflows. Now, for most organizations, the process to kick off a troubleshooting effort or to triage an issue usually starts with some kind of an alert or incident notification. So what we're looking at here is an alert that was triggered by Catchpoint for a particular service that we're monitoring. Now, when I click into that alert, the first thing that we're going to do is start to see a timeline of when those errors started to happen, how long they lasted, and be able to see in which locations those errors were stemming from. And as I scroll through this list, we can see they're coming from a number of different regions, not just within the US, but globally as well. Now, this is helpful in understanding the breadth of the issue and kind of the magnitude of impact. But the first thing that I want to do when I begin investigating a problem is answer that question that we had talked about earlier. Is it me or is it something else? Catchpoint has the ability, remember all of those services that we were looking at in my previous demo that we did a few minutes ago, the services across different cloud providers, CDNs, etc. Catchpoint intelligently understands that all of the synthetic testing that we're doing, if it's accessing or hitting or monitoring one of those services, we're going to then correlate any outages detected by our sonar capability to that test. So in this case, we're hitting a specific cloud provider, and Internet Sonar identified that there's an outage with that provider in a couple different regions, and it provides this notification that there's this related service outage. So immediately I know that it has nothing to do with my application or maybe my internal network where we're hosting it. This has to do with the cloud provider that we're using. So now I can start to drill in a little more deeply to better understand what's happening to that. And this will take us back to that similar dashboard, the global map that we were looking at earlier. And we can see, for this particular outage, where it was happening, and as I said, in what regions. Now, let's talk about what would happen if this were not a third party issue and it were something, in our control that we wanted to investigate more deeply. Well, now what I can do is I can click into a capability called our smart board. And what our smart board does is it provides intelligence for that particular test that we're running. So I can start to see all of the relevant metrics across our web pages, across our HTTP request, through the network. So we can start to correlate all of our performance data against that test. And the other thing that we'll do is instead of forcing organizations or IT teams to have to sift through hundreds, literally hundreds of different metrics that Catchpoint collects, what we're going to do is we're going to aggregate all of those metrics together and provide a higher level um, experience score. So that experience score will help us understand, based off of the performance, based off of the availability, are users satisfied? Are they tolerating the performance of that site? Are they frustrated with the performance, or is it just straight out failing? Meaning that the application of the service is not available. So right away, I can understand what our perceived user experience is based on the data and the metrics that we're collecting. The other thing that we're doing is we're bubbling up key events, meaning events that are happening in and around this time that help us understand what the problem may be. If there's a DNS issue, if there's downtime detected across the nodes that we're running from. And oh, by the way, right, we can also see in this particular case that there was this internet sonar detected outage that was happening at that time. From here, I can click further into our testing, and now we start to look at our scatter plot. And the scatter plot will give insights across all of the different tests that we run, and I can click into any one of those specific records to get more details as to what happened. We'll have our waterfall chart that shows us any errors for all of the requests, all of the objects that were loaded on that page. And once again, if there were any correlating events, in this case, our outage detected by Internet Sonar, we're going to surface that right away. So all throughout this troubleshooting workflow, we have the data, we have the details, we have the insight to help you understand much more quickly where that problem is coming from, so you can bring in the right teams, avoid these very costly, war room situations. You've got the right teams that can fix the problem, or at least have the knowledge and expertise to bring in the right folks to fix that problem. Thanks for watching this, Mark. I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Bob. That was great. Let's wrap things up here because I know we're running low on time. Just to tell you a bit more about us before we leave, we are the Internet Resilience Company. We've been doing this for over 15 years. I mentioned our observability network. It's the largest in the world. We have a huge customer base. Most of them I can't name, but we are trusted by over 300 leading brands, and we invented the Internet Performance Monitoring category. We are built by the experts for the experts. And next steps going on from here, if you'd like to learn more at us, please visit us. We're at catchpoint.com.